Um, please help me welcome Lee Salazar. He's the CEO of Blakeman Associates, and he's going to be speaking this morning on Christmas parties and all that comes with that, and the liability and COVID, all different things that we're currently experiencing. So Lee, I welcome you, and we're so glad to have you and your expertise. And we're going to go ahead and kickstart. So beginning, can you kind of touch on, when it comes to planning a company get together, how should these employers consider the risk in different ways that they can reduce their employer liability?
Okay, thank you. And it's my pleasure to speak to everybody. I wish we could do this in person. I miss those days. The 3 points I want to make before we get farther down the lecture today is: one, safety of your employees is a priority. And we're going to talk about a lot of things and a lot of responsibilities and liabilities and things like that. But it all comes down to the safety of your employees. And I think we all agree on that. The second point that I want to make before we get started is what happens off the job does affect what occurs on the job. You know, most of the times when we talk, we always talk about on the job, accidents, on the job situations. A lot about what we're talking about today is going to be about off the job, but it still affects on the job. And I had an owner once tell me, I've been through 8 divorces, and I thought that was extremely high. He said, no, every time one of my employees goes through a divorce, I feel like I go through it as well. And that's kind of what we talk about as employers or people in management. Things that occur off the job do affect on the job. If an employee gets hurt off the job in a car accident and can't come to work, that affects on the job. So want to make sure that is a key point that we continue to discuss as we talk this morning. And the third point is accidents around the holidays are extremely difficult. We have done several accident investigations around Thanksgiving and Christmas, and it affects their lives. It affects their holidays every year after that. So we want to make sure as employers and management that we don't have any accidents or situations that are going to affect upcoming holidays. I know Elizabeth started about, planning a Christmas party. I'm going to be honest with you, 2020 is a different year. And we need to consider a lot of things. One of the things we're going to consider is COVID as we plan this Christmas party or Christmas event or holiday event. The other one is mental health. We've been doing a lot of training on mental health. There have been a lot of accidents at the job site. Employees are now more worried than ever about their finances, their job, their health, their family's health. So a lot of stress, additional stress has been put on workers, and that affects them at work, but it's also going to affect them as we plan these events. As again, when we talk about planning a holiday event, safety is the number one priority. And a lot of you are going to ask a question, am I responsible if I serve alcohol? You are if you serve alcohol. Now, I've spoke with several lawyers, and their recommendation has always been, if you are going to have alcohol at one of your holiday functions, 2 things: hold it at another facility, another restaurant or bar or an event center, and always have hired staff. Don't let employees serve themselves. Don't let employees serve other employees. Also, when you hold it at a restaurant or a bar, they accept the liability because they're serving the alcohol and they have insurance for that. So, I always tell people, don't ever hold it at your shop or at your office. I know sometimes a lot of people like to do that. But this year, you want to put as much responsibility on someone else and liability. By doing that, going to a restaurant or a bar or an event center, that helps you as an employer. So I want to make sure that is. If you're going to have a Christmas party or holiday party, this is a good time to emphasize your company culture, that you want everyone to be responsible, everyone to act accordingly, that this is an event, but company policies are still in effect. So there have been many instances where we've done investigations at company events. Someone gets intoxicated and behaves inappropriately, or gets into a fight or something like that, and they say, well, it wasn't at work, but a company event is part of the job, and your policies still do come into effect. One of the things that we need to consider if you're providing alcohol, I always ask, try not to. But if you are going to have alcohol at your holiday function, try to stick to beer and wine. Liquor, it does create a bigger risk. So I tell people, beer and wine, soft drinks, water. The other thing I tell people to do is limit the number of drinks employees can have at these functions. Give drink tickets. Everyone gets 2 drink tickets, and always provide food so that they can absorb the alcohol in the food. Always limit the number of hours they can get alcohol. Don't make it from noon to 7 o'clock at night. Then obviously we're going to end up with some situations and problems. Say that we will be serving beer and wine from 3 to 5 or 5 to 7 or 7 to 9, but limit the number of hours that alcohol is available. I always tell people to use trained bartenders. And then the last thing I said is, alcohol really needed at a holiday function? We want to share each other's company. We want to share the company values and culture, but you do put yourself at risk, and you do put your employees at risk. And it's a very difficult time because we want our employees to feel comfortable and have a good time, but we also want to limit the liability and the possibility that would lead to an accident or something more serious. This year, because it's 2020, COVID, if you're going to have a Christmas party, you must put that into play. COVID is still, the numbers are still high. A lot of positive cases. I know in Texas right now, it's over 11% that are still coming in positive. There's a lot of people still sick. And so you want to limit the exposure of your employees. I tell people right now, if you're going to have a holiday event, make it workers only. Don't include spouses, because you're just expanding the area where people can get more to get sick or to come in contact with it. Also, if you're going to have a holiday event, try to have it outside, for distance and spacing. Also enforce the mask. If you're going to be walking around, you have to wear a mask. If you're at a table, you can take your mask off. A lot of these things everyone already knows, everyone's already practicing, but you want to make sure that you address it as soon as possible to make sure everyone understands that we do not want anybody being exposed to COVID. That would be I would like to say that would be a bad thing, to have a holiday event and then someone gets exposed to COVID and becomes ill. And you don't want that, nor does anybody else. But that is a lot of things that, we talk about when clients call and ask about company events and company parties. Is 2020 is different. I don't think anybody's going to be upset if the event changes this year as it is accustomed to. And that is just because of the COVID and because of all the issues and concerns that are coming about. And, I'm sure everyone has heard about the vaccine, but that is still not available. And so right now, there are still thousands and thousands of people becoming infected with COVID. And so we need to make sure that we address that if we're going to have a holiday event. So I talked to you about the alcohol. I talked to you about COVID. Both of those are extremely important to discuss before you have this holiday event, and make sure that management understands that there is some risk, and make sure employees understand there is some risk. Um, right now, we're a lot of employees are attending events. A lot of employees are not attending events. You may find that this year, if you do have a company party, you will not get the attendance that you normally get. Also, what I tell people all the time is, companies events are not required, but encouraged. You would love for people to come, and you'd love to talk to them in a format that you can be open and see how they're doing, not under work situations. But 2020 is a different year, and there are going to be people who are not going to feel comfortable this year doing that. They may in previous felt comfortable. And so make sure we address all that, and make sure we discuss it with your management team. The 2020 is a different year. 2020 is brought us COVID, and we need to address that if we're going to have any events. We also need to make sure that if an employee attends the party, you might want to do temperature checks before you allow them into the party, just to ensure that no one's coming to the party that has a high temperature, or that may have symptoms of COVID.
So Lee, a few questions that are coming through, and I think you've addressed this one, but I just want to confirm. So if a company issues drink tickets that are paid for by the company, the responsibility, if it's at a venue, falls on that venue.
Right.
So let's talk about if a company issues 2 paid for drink tickets, and then it's up to the employee to continue to purchase if they wish. It still falls on that venue.
It does. Because at that point, that would become a cash bar, and their bartenders are licensed, and the establishment is held liable for that should that employee become intoxicated or or is served too much alcohol.
And if you're having it at a venue, let's just say like a warehouse or something, and you hire someone, it's recommended that they be TABC certified.
Right. And make sure that
because if they're not, it falls back on your organization. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah.
That's why we want to hire someone who is licensed and someone who has insurance. And normally, it's a staffing company or someone, an event company that provides that kind of staff, and they have insurance and they have liability.
Okay. And I welcome y'all to submit questions via the chat box if you wish, or if you would like to unmute and ask the question yourself, that works as well. So Lee, can you also speak on, let's say someone attends the Christmas party and then later finds out that they tested positive for COVID. What are your recommendations for that organization moving forward?
Okay. Before we take off on that subject, I just want to make sure that everyone takes these notes. One, and I need to make sure everyone understands, do not serve alcohol if minors are attending the event. There is some liability. Try not to hold the event involving alcohol during regular business hours, because then you accept more of the liability because it's during normal business hours. If you're going to hold a holiday event and alcohol is going to be served, make sure it's after hours, business hours. And as I said earlier, make sure that if you are going to have alcohol, try to hold it at a venue that has licensed, qualified bartenders and has insurance and liability. Also, limit the number of drinks that you provide. It's normally accustomed that everybody gets 2 drinks. Uh, Make sure that you don't give more than that. After that, the employee is responsible through a cash bar or something such as that. Also, discourage employees who say, "I'm not drinking here. You can have my drink tickets." When you're passing out the drink tickets, ask them if they want the drink tickets. If they say, "No, I'm not drinking," then don't give them the drink tickets, because that could lead to employees giving other employees drink tickets and causing them to end up with 4 or 6 drink tickets. And we don't want to over serve someone. Also, discourage any employees, remind them before the party, during a safety meeting or the announcement, that excessive drinking is prohibited, and to act appropriately, that the company is doing this to provide them an opportunity to meet and greet, but it's not an opportunity for everyone to get drunk. And a lot of times employees need to hear that sometimes from management. Go to the company function, but you're not going there to see how much you can drink. You're going there so that you can meet and greet and talk to people and share the season. And the last thing, uh, if you should have an employee who is intoxicated, um, it's important that you take responsibility and try to give that employee transportation home, or to back to where they're from. So it has happened. We are all adults on this call. We all know that this happens. Sometimes people do drink too much. Uh, as leadership and management of a company, you should always say, if anyone feels intoxicated or anyone feels that they're not able to drive home, please get with Elizabeth or please get with David, and we will arrange transportation for you home. Okay? Not going to judge anybody, it happens, but that's another area where you can continue to take care of your employees and continue to try to ensure their safety. And now I will get to COVID.
So Lee, really quick, I have a question. So let's say someone drinks too much, they don't behave like they normally would, and you get them a ride home. Are you encouraging an employer to make a note in their file, write them up? What does that look like?
Well, what we encourage them is to remind the employee when they come back to work that behavior is unacceptable. The event was to meet and greet and provide some opportunities for us to just fellowship. We really discourage that, but I don't think there have been situations where employees, and I know I'm speaking to everyone, where employees have got terminated because of the way they behaved at a company function. So I would tell you that if the behavior is, I'm trying to say how I'm going to say this. If it's inappropriate and caused problems to someone else, then yes. Like, say, sexual harassment. Someone went and touched somebody, or someone went and attacked somebody, or something like that. Then yes, that can and will lead up to termination. But if it's just somebody who had a few too many to drink, and we encourage them to ask for a ride, we're not going to discipline them for that. Does that make sense?
Yes, but you do recommend them still being or requesting them come in to sit down and have that conversation.
Because you want to make sure we address any behavior that is unacceptable.
Okay. That's it for now. We can keep moving on to COVID.
COVID. Should you have a holiday event and someone the next day or 2 days later comes and tells you that they have tested positive for COVID and they attended the holiday event, what should you do as an employer? The first thing you're going to do, and just like any situation with COVID, you're going to follow CDC guidance. And that is to isolate that employee and for them to get medical treatment. Okay. Understand this is under HIPAA. So you cannot go back and say, hey, Billy Smith tested positive for COVID. So everyone that was at the party that talked to Billy Smith, we got a problem. What we have to say is there was an employee that attended the party and they tested positive for COVID. We now need to talk to everyone who attended the party to see if anyone has any symptoms, to see if anyone needs any medical treatment, and to see if anyone came into contact that they believe they came into contact with the person at the party that had it. You and I both know people are going to talk, people are going to know, but it can't come from the company, the name of the employee, because of HIPAA. That's a medical condition. So what we tell our employers is after the event, make notification to all employees who attended the company party, and make sure they understand that they need to be watched, that they need to communicate if there's any medical issues or symptoms, that we need to address that. Now, I'm going to give you an example. We had a company recently had a birthday party. Well, a supervisor at the company had a birthday party for himself. So he invited all the managers and owners of the company to his house to have the birthday party, even though COVID was in effect. What ended up happening as everyone attended that party, it was a very large party in a small area. So he said there must have been 35 to 40 people in a 2-car garage, and 10 supervisors and the owners tested positive for COVID. And that's just an example of what you don't want to happen. You really, really want to ensure that if you're having an event, that you do social distancing and that you have people wear the mask. Because that company was devastated. They had 150 employees with no supervisors or managers because they were all positive for COVID. So it was a very difficult time for that company. And you don't want that to happen at your company. And so we want to make sure that we continue to practice the social distancing, we continue to practice the face covering and the hand sanitizing. Now, I will tell you this. Some people ask me, what am I required to do? You're not required to do anything. And that's kind of frustrating for a lot of people. CDC provides guidance. It's not a law. It's not a requirement. It doesn't say, okay, I need to make sure everyone gets tested. That is a company decision. So I have companies that say if one person on a crew gets tested positive, the whole crew goes into isolation. I have companies that says if one person gets tested positive, we wait to see if there's any symptoms, but everyone continues to work, and we go from there. Then I have companies that say if one person is tested positive, the rest of the crew gets tested. They come back negative, they continue to work as long as they don't show any. That is an employer's choice. What we want to do, though, as an employer, when someone does test positive, is to isolate that person from everyone and make sure that person gets medical treatment. Because, as everyone knows, thousands and thousands of people have died from this, and we don't want that to happen to an employee. But at the same time, we want to be able to continue to move forward. And so if, I have companies that say, hey, I want 2 negative tests before you come back to work. Well, where does it say that in the law? It doesn't. That is an employer's rule. What it says is that if you are positive, you must be isolated. But if you are not positive or you have no symptoms, you can continue to work, providing that you're wearing a mask and that you're social distancing and that you're disinfecting yourself when you do come in contact with anybody else. Now, I get asked the question, well, when should I test somebody? What CDC says is 15 minutes. If you're around a person who has tested positive for more than 15 minutes and you are within 6 feet of that person, um, you should be tested. But that's a guidance. That's not a requirement, but it's recommended. And because people have asked the question, well, I was around that person, but I really wasn't, I was 25 feet away from him, or I was 50 feet away from him. He worked on this project, I work on this project, and I never came in contact with him. What do I have to do? Well, we just monitor, make sure that you don't show any symptoms. But if I worked with this person who tested positive and me and him work side by side, then yeah, we want to get that person tested.
So a question's coming in. If an employer requires an employee to quarantine, is the employee required to use personal time, or is the employer required to pay the wages during this time?
Required to pay the wages.
And if an employer requires 2 negative tests before returning, is that the employer's obligation to pay for those tests?
Yes. Because it's not required. It's a company requirement. It's like if I said every employee is required to go to the doctor and be tested. I am making that as a requirement. I can't put that expense on my employees.
Okay. That's all the questions we have right now.
Okay. I know I'm trying not to be negative, and I'm trying not to. I know the holidays are coming up, and I know everyone's tired and frustrated with the COVID, and everyone looks at this differently. I still run across people who say, I'm not going to wear a mask, and then I run across people who say, I wear a mask, 24/7. And so there's so much extreme going on out there, and everyone's just stressed and fear because no one wants to get sick. I mean, people are dying every day from this, and some people are taking that very seriously, and others aren't. And so there's a wide range of way people are dealing with that because of that. So, we need to be open-minded to make sure that every employee is safe. That's our goal. And that's what I tell people all the time when they ask, are we making a safe environment for our employees? And are we taking care of our employees to ensure their safety? And I'm not worried about feelings. I'm not worried about emotions. As a business owner or as a person in management, am I doing what I need to do for the safety of my employees? And try not to make it personal. The holidays are coming, and some people have already made the comments that, not going to travel. Some people, they're going to travel. And so that's an individual's decision. But as the holidays come, we just need to be respectful of everyone and how they feel. And I know that's hard sometimes because, we want things to move on. We want to move forward. I know everyone is exhausted with COVID and can't wait to this to be over. But at the same time, it's not over. And we need to take precautions for our employees to ensure their safety.
So when the employer pays the wages, is that considered an executive order, a law, or a guideline?
I'm going to have to get with my HR lady and get back with you on that one.
Okay.
And I will have Michelle respond with that.
So any other tips when it comes to having a Christmas party if people do choose to do that. You mentioned no spouses, masks, an outdoor event if possible. You know, we're in the panhandle, a lot of us. So an outdoor party, we could have snow on the ground. Do you recommend like 4 to a table? Do you have any other recommendations?
Well, I always go back to be sure that you try not to hold it at your shop or office. Try not to hold it during business hours. Try to hold it at a location that is already in compliance with COVID. If you hold it at a restaurant or at a bar, they understand that they're under strict orders and they're going to make adjustments to make sure that that occurs. They're going to take tables out. They're going to put more space in between people. That way the responsibility falls back on them. I know that sometimes that's expensive and everyone likes to just, clean the shop and have everyone stay after work and have a few beers. I mean, we are in Texas, but 2020 is different. I mean, if it was 2018 or 2019, then yeah, I'd say, we can work with you on that. But with the COVID, it changes the game. And so we need to be a little bit more cautious by having events at our locations because we need to ensure the distancing. Now, if you have a humongous shop and you have 30 employees, then yeah, that's great. But a lot of times, people don't have that kind of luxury. They have a shop and they have so many employees. And like you said, there's snow on the ground and everybody's going to want to be inside. Are you creating an environment where employees may come in contact with COVID and it affects your workforce? And that's what we don't want.
I'm going to open it up for any additional questions while we have Lee here with us. And just a reminder, as a client of NCW and Sanford and Tatum, you have complimentary access to Blakeman Associates. So if questions like this do arise, you're welcome to either email this to me and I can funnel them to them, or you have access to calling them and speaking with them one-on-one.
We also want to talk about, Elizabeth, driving, holiday safety. Just let me know when we're ready for that, because that's a big deal right now.
I think we'll move on to that and see if any other questions come. We can circle back around.
Okay. I know everyone's aware of holiday driving. Between Thanksgiving and Christmas, motor vehicle fatalities are 2 to 3 times more likely. And I have witnessed this through several companies where employees have had fatal crashes during the holiday season. And it really devastates companies. It devastates the holidays. It devastates the employer. It devastates the employee. So I ask that each and every one of you take a few minutes and remind everybody how unsafe it is to drive during the holiday season, and to be careful and to be cautious. This is the time where more drunk drivers are on the road than ever during the holiday season, as we can expect that there's parties, events, family events, and everything else that goes with that. More alcohol is being consumed now more than ever. Alcohol is up 20 to 30%. So there are more drunk drivers on the road. So, remind your employees not to be one of those, to always have a designated driver or always have transportation available, Uber, taxi, whatever. You do not want anybody being in a car accident over the holidays. It's not what we want as employers, because it will affect the company. So Like I said, 2 to 3 times more people die in alcohol-related deaths between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And let's not forget about New Year's Eve, because that's always a big one as well. But it seems that New Year's Eve, the police have more enforcement out there on New Year's Eve because they know it's a situation. But between Thanksgiving and Christmas, they don't have the enforcement that they did as opposed to New Year's Eve because they're looking at one day. As you know, Christmas parties are held through all December, and it leads to a lot of dangerous situation. Also, when we talk about drunk drivers, make sure everyone understands, if you drive, between midnight and 3 in the morning, there's a strong possibility you're going to be driving among drunk drivers. And so you need to be sure that you address that. Try to, get home reasonable times so that you're not on the road late at night and exposed to those drunk drivers, because your employees have families, your employees have a lot of things to live for, and we don't want them exposed to drunk drivers late at night. Distracted drivers has become a big problem. People now are looking at their text messages and their phone, becoming more distracted, as they drive, and that results in more accidents. And so remind your employees to put the phone down, don't text and drive, don't, try to make phone calls while you drive, try to go to a hands-free phone if you have one. Try to keep your hands on the wheel and try to pay attention to your driving, because again, big problem when we run across this distracted driving. Now, also at this time, we have more drowsy drivers, fatigue drivers. Holidays, people go out more, they do more things during the holiday season, whether it's shopping, visiting, parties, events, whatever it may be, and they become more fatigued and drowsy. And we've all been there. People get drowsy at different points. I've seen a lot of car accidents occur in the afternoons, in the evenings. If you are tired or you are fatigued or you are sleepy, pull over and protect yourself and protect everyone else. Take a walk. I know people talk about drinking coffee. That's not sometimes recommended because it just makes you a caffeine fatigue driver. And so we want to make sure that we address those situations. Again, we don't want you in an automobile accident during the holidays. And it's a big deal that we make sure our employees are aware of it and address it, because that 5-minute talk that you have with your employees, he'll remember that. I should find a ride home, or I should put my phone down because I'm going to get into a wreck, or I'm tired, I need to find another way of getting home, or I need to take a nap or take a brisk walk, get my blood flowing again so I can get back out on the road. But you'll be surprised what we've heard is, that 5-minute talk you told us, I remembered it and it helped me. And so again, take the 5 minutes, talk to your employees about safe driving during the holiday season. It's a horrible accident that occurs during the holiday season. It'll affect you, it'll affect your employees, it'll affect the holiday, and it's a very difficult time for everyone. So please take that 5 minutes and have that. And the last thing I want to talk about is weather. As you guys are aware of, especially in the Panhandle, icy conditions, wet conditions. It's dark now early, um, and weather does play a factor. And so we need to make sure our employees, when it's icy, when it's wet, slow down. You may be 10 minutes late, you may be 15 minutes late getting to where you're going, but it's worth it because so many accidents occur when the weather is bad and dark. And so those 4 areas, drunk driving, distracted driver, fatigue driver, and weather, Those are the 4 that you need to be aware of, and those are the 4 that you need to address as our employees, because we care about you and we want you to get home safe.
So Lee, a question come in. If alcohol is being served, do you encourage an employer to offer Ubers for all employees, or do you feel as though that promotes excessive drinking?
A and A, yes, yes. I do want your employees to say, if you feel that you are not able to drive home safely, let a supervisor, manager, or HR department know. We will arrange transportation for you. It does encourage excessive drinking because people now feel that, hey, I got to ride home, I can let go. And that's not why we're doing that. We're not doing it so you can drink more. We're doing it because we want to make sure you get home safely. And so, just like you said, just be aware of it. It does increase people beverage, but at the same time, we really want your safety. And that's what I tell you to continue to go back to, is your safety is our priority. And if I have to pay for an Uber, or I have to pay for a taxi, or I have to pay for a Lyft, and it gets you home safe, it was worth it.
Okay, Lee. Well, we appreciate your time. I haven't received any other additional questions, but if you do have questions that pop up after we log off, feel free to email those to me or Tamara Cannon, and we are happy to funnel those over to Lee. As always, I'll follow up with the link to this if you'd like to share it with any of your employees or supervisors. And we look forward to hosting our next Clear Up the Chaos the second Tuesday in December. So we hope to see you, and feel free to go ahead and sign up, and we'll get that login information sent over. Wishing y'all a great week. Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great holiday.